The sleeping giant. In the depths of space, a marvel of human engineering cruised silently through the void. The Prometheus, a sleek vessel bristling with advanced technology, represented the pinnacle of Earth's achievements. Its mission, to establish first contact with the galactic community and pave the way for humanity's entry onto the cosmic stage. Captain Nora Daniels stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the viewscreen displaying a sea of unfamiliar stars. She felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, knowing that the future of her species hinged on the success of this encounter. As the Prometheus approached the designated rendezvous point, a fleet of alien ships materialized from the darkness. Their designs were elegant and artistic, but to Daniel's trained eye, they lacked the practicality and efficiency of human vessels. The comms officer, Lieutenant Ryan Pierce, turned to Daniels. "Captain, we're being hailed by the lead ship." Daniels nodded. On screen. The viewscreen flickered to life, revealing a humanoid figure with silvery skin and piercing blue eyes. "Unknown vessel, you have entered the sovereign territory of the Galactic Council. Identify yourselves and state your purpose." Daniels stepped forward, her posture confident and assured. "This is Captain Nora Daniels of the Earth ship Prometheus. We come in peace, seeking to establish diplomatic relations with the galactic community." The alien's expression remained impassive. "Your arrival is unexpected and your ship's capabilities are concerning. The Council maintains strict limits on the development of advanced technologies to ensure stability. You will power down your systems and prepare to be boarded for inspection." Daniels bristled at the demand. "With all due respect, we have no intention of submitting to your authority. We are here as representatives of an independent species, not as subjects." Tension filled the bridge as the standoff continued. The alien fleet maneuvered to surround the Prometheus, their weapons systems locking onto the human ship. Daniels turned to her tactical officer, Commander Elena Romanova. "Scan their ships. I want a full assessment of their capabilities." Romanova's fingers danced across her console. Her eyes widened in surprise. "Captain, their weapons are underwhelming. They appear to be designed for ceremonial purposes rather than actual combat." The revelation sent a murmur through the bridge crew. The disparity between the Prometheus' cutting-edge technology and the aliens' decorative ships was staggering. Daniels pressed her advantage. "It seems there's been a misunderstanding. We have no desire for conflict, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. I suggest we proceed with diplomacy." The alien hesitated, clearly unaccustomed to such assertiveness from an unknown species. "Very well. We will escort you to the council chambers for further discussions. But be warned, any deviation from our instructions will be met with force." As the viewscreen went blank, Daniels exchanged a look with her first officer, Commander Liam Nakamura. "Well, that went better than expected." Nakamura raised an eyebrow. "If you consider being surrounded by an alien fleet with orders to power down better, I'd hate to see worse." Daniels allowed herself a small smile. "They're scared, Liam. They've never encountered a species with our level of advancement. It's up to us to show them that we're not a threat, but an opportunity." As the Prometheus fell into formation with the alien ships, Daniels couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much larger story. Humanity had taken its first steps onto the galactic stage, and the repercussions would be felt for generations to come. Ripples in the pond. News of the human ship's arrival spread like wildfire through the Galactic Council. In the Grand Chamber where representatives from 1,000 worlds gathered, the atmosphere crackled with tension and uncertainty. High Counselor Zoran, a tall, slender being with iridescent scales, called the assembly to order. "Fellow counselors, we face an unprecedented situation. An unknown species has entered our space, bearing technology that far exceeds our own. We must decide how to proceed." Murmurs echoed through the chamber as the representatives grappled with the implications. For millennia, the Council had maintained peace by strictly regulating the development of advanced technologies. The fear was that unchecked progress could lead to devastating conflicts and the collapse of the galactic order. Counselor Vexlar, a stocky, fur-covered alien, spoke up. This humanity poses a clear threat to our way of life. Their very existence undermines the foundation of our society. We must neutralize them before they can spread their influence. Others voiced their agreement, calling for the immediate containment or even destruction of the human ship. But a dissenting voice rose above the clamor. Counselor Lyra, a delicate, bird-like creature, fluttered her wings to gain attention. Are we so quick to condemn an entire species based on our own fears? Perhaps this is an opportunity for growth and understanding. We should engage with the humans, learn from them, and find a path forward together. The chamber erupted into a cacophony of competing opinions. Zoran raised a hand, silencing the crowd. We will put it to a vote. Those in favor of containment and isolation, stand with Vexlar. Those who seek engagement in diplomacy, stand with Lyra. As the councillors divided, it became clear that the hardliners held the majority. Zoran nodded grimly. It is decided. The human ship will be placed under quarantine, and any further contact will be forbidden. Lyra shook her head, disappointment etched on her features. You are making a mistake. Fear will only breed more fear. We must find a way to coexist. Zoran's eyes narrowed. The decision is final. The Council's primary responsibility is to maintain stability, even if it means sacrificing the potential for change. Meanwhile, aboard the Prometheus, Captain Daniels found herself navigating a delicate diplomatic dance. The ship had been granted permission to dock at a remote outpost on the edge of Council space, but their movements were heavily restricted and monitored. Daniels met with a delegation of Council representatives, each more guarded and suspicious than the last. She tried to emphasize humanity's peaceful intentions and desire for cooperation, but her words seemed to fall on deaf ears. As the meetings dragged on without progress, Daniels couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The Council's reactions seemed driven by more than just caution. There was an undercurrent of fear and paranoia that hinted at deeper issues. One evening, as Daniels retired to her quarters, a message appeared on her private terminal. It was encrypted, the source untraceable. She hesitated for a moment before opening it. The message was brief and cryptic. Not all of us blindly follow the Council's dictates. There are secrets they hide, truths they suppress. If you seek allies, look to the shadows. Daniels leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. Could there be factions within the Council itself that opposed the hardliners' isolationist policies? The thought both intrigued and troubled her. She knew that she would have to tread carefully. Any misstep could jeopardize not only her mission but the future of humanity's relationship with the galactic community. But if there was a chance to forge a path towards understanding and cooperation, she had to take it. As the Prometheus sat docked, surrounded by the watchful eyes of the Council, Daniels realized that the true challenge lay not in the strength of their weapons, but in the power of their ideas. To change the course of galactic history, they would need more than advanced technology, they would need the courage to inspire change from within. Pandora's Box. Counselor Lyra walked through the bustling streets of the capital city, her mind heavy with the weight of recent events. The arrival of the human ship had sparked a fire in the hearts of those who had long questioned the Council's rigid control over technological development. Whispers of discontent and calls for change grew louder with each passing day. The younger generations, in particular, saw humanity as a symbol of what they could achieve if freed from the shackles of the Council's restrictions. As Lyra turned a corner, she found herself face to face with a group of protesters. They carried holographic signs demanding access to advanced knowledge and an end to the Council's monopoly on progress. One of the protesters, a young male with fiery red skin, stepped forward. Counselor Lyra, you are known as a voice of reason in the Council. Will you stand with us in our fight for the right to determine our own future? Lyra hesitated, torn between her duty to maintain order and her growing doubts about the Council's policies. I understand your frustrations, but change must come through proper channels. We cannot risk destabilizing our society. The protesters' eyes narrowed. And what has following proper channels achieved? The council hoards knowledge and suppresses innovation, all in the name of stability. But true stability comes from growth and adaptation, not stagnation. Lyra sighed, knowing that there was truth in the young man's words. She had seen the cracks in the council's facade, the fear that drove their decisions. But she also knew that change, if it came too suddenly, could be just as destructive as the status quo. As the protests continued to spread, Captain Daniels and her crew worked tirelessly to build bridges with the more open-minded members of the council. They shared knowledge and technology, demonstrating that humanity sought partnership, not domination. In private meetings with counselors like Lyra, Daniels made her case. Your people have so much potential, but you've been held back by fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of change. But change is inevitable. The question is whether you will embrace it or be left behind. Lyra listened intently, her doubts growing stronger with each passing day. She saw the excitement in the eyes of the younger generations, the hunger for knowledge and progress. And she began to wonder if the council's way was truly the only way. As tensions rose and the clamor for reform grew louder, the hardliners within the council grew increasingly desperate. They saw humanity's influence as a threat to their power and were determined to stamp it out by any means necessary. In a clandestine meeting, Vexlar and his allies plotted their next move. The humans have become a rallying point for the dissidents. We must act quickly to discredit them and reassert control. One of the conspirators, a shadowy figure known only as the Overseer, spoke up. I have a plan. We will stage an incident, make it appear as though the humans have violated our laws. Then we will have the justification we need to seize their ship and remove their influence once and for all. Vexlar nodded, a cruel smile spreading across his face. And what of the protesters? The sympathizers within our own ranks? The Overseer's eyes glinted with malice. They will be dealt with. One way or another, the council's authority will be absolute. As the conspiracy took shape, Daniels and her crew remained unaware of the gathering storm. They continued their efforts to foster understanding and cooperation, unaware that their every move was being watched and twisted to fit the hardliners' narrative. But even as the council's grip tightened, the seeds of change had been planted. The younger generations had tasted the possibility of a different future, and they would not be so easily silenced. The Prometheus had become more than just a ship, it was a symbol of hope and defiance in the face of oppression. As the galaxy stood on the brink of upheaval, Daniels knew that the true test of humanity's resolve was yet to come. They had opened Pandora's box, and now they would have to navigate the consequences, for better or for worse. The Phantom Menace. In the shadows of the council's halls, a figure moved with purposeful strides. The Overseer, cloaked in a veil of secrecy, had set in motion a plan that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. For years, the Overseer had been a master of manipulation, pulling the strings from behind the scenes. He had carefully cultivated a network of spies and agents, placing them in key positions throughout the galactic community. Now, with the arrival of the humans and the growing unrest among the populace, the Overseer saw an opportunity to consolidate his control. He had long believed that the Council's restrictions on technology were a means to keep the masses in line, to prevent any challenge to their authority. The human ship, with its advanced capabilities, represented a threat to that order. But it also presented a unique opportunity. If the Overseer could provoke a conflict between humanity and the Council, he could use the chaos to seize power and mold the galaxy in his own image. As he made his way to a secret meeting with his most trusted operatives, the Overseer's mind raced with possibilities. He had already set the stage for the incident that would discredit the humans and justify a military response. His agents had infiltrated the Prometheus, planting evidence of supposed violations of Council law. They had also been stoking tensions among the populace, spreading rumors and propaganda to paint humanity as a dangerous and unpredictable force. The overseer entered a dimly lit room, where a group of shadowy figures awaited his arrival. They were his inner circle, the most loyal and ruthless of his followers. "My friends," he began, his voice smooth and calculated. "The time has come for us to seize our destiny. For too long, the Council has held us back, denying us the power that is rightfully ours. But with the humans as our unwitting pawns, we will finally break free of their shackles." One of the operatives, a cunning and ambitious woman known as Raven, stepped forward. "The preparations are complete, Overseer. We have the evidence we need to incriminate the humans and the support of key counselors who share our vision." The Overseer nodded, a cold smile playing on his lips. "Excellent. And what of our other objective?" Raven's eyes glinted with anticipation. "The assassination of Counselor Lyra is being arranged as we speak. Her death will serve as a rallying cry for those who oppose change, further destabilizing the Council." The Overseer clasped his hands together, his voice dripping with satisfaction. "Perfect. With Lyra out of the way and the humans branded as enemies of the state, we will be free to shape the future as we see fit. A future where the strong rule and the weak serve." As the meeting adjourned and his operatives dispersed to carry out their tasks, the Overseer allowed himself a moment of triumph. He had spent years orchestrating this moment, carefully laying the groundwork for his ascent to power. But even as he reveled in his impending victory, a flicker of doubt crept into his mind. The humans had proven to be more resilient and adaptable than he had anticipated. And there were still those within the Council, like Lyra, who sought to find a path to peace and cooperation. The Overseer pushed those thoughts aside. He had come too far to let anything stand in his way now. The galaxy would bend to his will, one way or another. Meanwhile, aboard the Prometheus, Captain Daniels was unaware of the gathering storm. She continued her efforts to build bridges and foster understanding, never suspecting that her every move was being watched and manipulated. But as the Overseer's plan began to unfold and the first signs of trouble appeared on the horizon, Daniels would soon find herself at the center of a conflict that threatened to consume the entire galaxy. The Phantom Menace was on the move, and the fate of billions hung in the balance. B. C. Here is the continuation of the story. Part 5, The Chess Masters. Captain Daniels sat in her quarters, poring over the latest reports from her crew. The Prometheus had been granted limited access to Council space, but their every move was being closely monitored. As she scrolled through the data, a particular anomaly caught her eye. There had been a series of unusual communications between certain Council ships, encrypted and heavily guarded. It was the kind of activity that set off alarms in Daniel's well-honed instincts. She called in her top advisors, Commander Nakamura, Lieutenant Pierce, and Dr. Ilara Voss, the ship's brilliant scientist. Together, they began to piece together the patterns, trying to decipher the hidden agenda at play. "It's clear that there's a faction within the Council that sees us as a threat," Nakamura observed, his brow furrowed in concentration. "But the question is, what are they planning?" Dr. Voss chimed in, her eyes alight with the thrill of the puzzle. "I've been analyzing the energy signatures from those encrypted transmissions. There's something familiar about them, almost like..." Her voice trailed off as realization dawned. "They're using old Earth cryptographic algorithms. The kind that were used centuries ago, during the era of global espionage." Daniels leaned forward, her interest piqued. "So we're dealing with someone who has studied our history, our tactics. Someone who knows how to think like us." Pierce, ever the pragmatist, interjected. "That narrows down the list of suspects. There aren't many in the Council who would have access to that kind of information." Daniels nodded, a plan forming in her mind. "We need to flush them out, force them to reveal their hand. And I think I know just how to do it." In the days that followed, the Prometheus crew put their strategy into action. They began to seed misinformation through their own encrypted channels, hinting at vulnerabilities in their defenses and potential weaknesses in their technology. At the same time, they reached out to their allies within the council, like Counselor Lyra, sharing their suspicions and enlisting their help in rooting out the hidden threat. It was a delicate game of chess, with each side maneuvering their pieces across the galactic board. The Overseer, still operating from the shadows, grew increasingly bold in his efforts to discredit the humans and sow discord among the council. But Daniels and her crew were always one step ahead, anticipating his moves and countering with their own. They staged demonstrations of their technological prowess, but always with an emphasis on restraint and defensive capabilities. They wanted to send a clear message: humanity was not a conquering force, but a potential partner in a new era of cooperation and progress. The tension reached a breaking point when an assassination attempt was made on Counselor Lyra. The Overseer had hoped to remove one of humanity's strongest advocates and plunged the Council into chaos. But thanks to the Prometheus crew's vigilance and quick action, the attempt was thwarted. In the aftermath, Lyra's resolve only grew stronger, and she became an even more vocal proponent of change. As the evidence of the Overseer's machinations began to mount, Daniels knew that the endgame was approaching. The chess masters were locked in a final, decisive battle, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. She gathered her crew once more, preparing for the confrontation that would determine the course of history. "We've come this far," she told them, her voice ringing with determination. "Now it's time to finish what we started. For Earth, for the Council, and for the future we know is possible." The stage was set for a showdown that would be remembered for generations. The Prometheus, the shining beacon of human ingenuity and resolve, stood ready to face the darkness that threatened to consume them all. In that moment, as the ship prepared for battle, Daniels felt a sense of clarity wash over her. Whatever the outcome, they had already achieved something remarkable. They had shown the galaxy that change was possible, that the old ways need not be the only ways. And as the first shots were fired and the final confrontation began, Daniels knew that, win or lose, they had already made their mark on history. The chess masters had played their final moves, and now all that remained was to see where the pieces would fall. A new dawn. The council chamber was in an uproar. Representatives from 1,000 worlds shouted and argued, their voices rising in a cacophony of anger and confusion. At the center of the storm stood Captain Daniels, flanked by her crew and a small group of allies. They had come to present the evidence they had gathered, to expose the Overseer's plot and the rot that had taken hold within the council itself. "Esteemed counselors," Daniels began, her voice cutting through the din, "we come before you today not as conquerors or adversaries, but as fellow travelers on the path of progress." She nodded to Dr. Voss, who stepped forward with a data pad in hand. "We have uncovered a conspiracy that threatens the very foundation of this council. A conspiracy led by one of your own, known as the Overseer." The chamber fell silent as Dr. Voss presented the evidence. Encrypted communications, financial records, and testimonies from whistleblowers painted a damning picture of corruption and manipulation. The Overseer, it seemed, had been working for years to undermine the Council's authority, sowing discord and hoarding advanced technology for his own gain. He had orchestrated the assassination attempt on Counselor Lyra and had been behind the efforts to discredit and isolate humanity. As the truth came to light, the mood in the chamber began to shift. The hardliners who had once opposed humanity found themselves on the defensive, their arguments crumbling in the face of the facts. Counselor Vexlar, once one of the Overseer's staunchest allies, stepped forward, his head bowed in shame. "I have been blind," he admitted, his voice heavy with regret. "I allowed my fear of change to cloud my judgment. I see now that the path we were on was one of stagnation and decay." Other counselors began to speak up, voicing their own doubts and concerns. They spoke of the need for reform, for a new way forward that embraced innovation and cooperation. Lyra, who had been watching the proceedings with a sense of vindication, rose to address the assembly. "My fellow counselors," she said, her voice ringing with conviction. The arrival of humanity was not a threat, but an opportunity. An opportunity to learn, to grow, and to build a better future for all of us. She turned to Daniels, a smile on her face. "Captain, your people have shown us that change is not something to be feared, but something to be embraced. You have reminded us of the power of curiosity, of the joy of discovery. For that, we owe you a great debt." As the Council voted to open formal diplomatic relations with Earth and to begin the process of reforming their own institutions, Daniels felt a sense of pride and accomplishment wash over her. They had done it. They had not only averted a catastrophe, but had set in motion a chain of events that would reshape the galaxy for generations to come. As the Prometheus prepared to depart, having completed its historic mission, Daniels took a moment to reflect on all that had happened. They had come so far, not just in terms of distance, but in terms of understanding. They had forged bonds of friendship and cooperation that would endure long after they returned home. And as she looked out at the stars, she knew that this was just the beginning. Humanity had taken its first steps onto the galactic stage, and there was no telling what wonders and challenges lay ahead. But one thing was certain, they would face them together, not as conquerors or subjugators, but as partners in the great adventure of exploration and discovery. As the Prometheus set course for Earth, Daniels allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. They had done their part to build a new dawn for the galaxy, and she knew that whatever the future held, they would be ready to meet it head-on. The old ways had been shattered, and in their place, a new era of possibility had emerged. An era where the greatest strengths of all species, their ingenuity, their courage, and their capacity for hope, would be the guiding lights on the path to a brighter tomorrow. And as the ship jumped to warp, the stars stretching into long lines of light, Daniels knew that she and her crew had been privileged to be a part of something truly extraordinary. They had not just changed the course of history, they had changed the very fabric of what was possible. It was a legacy that would endure long after they were gone, a testament to the power of the human spirit and the indomitable will to explore, to discover, and to reach for the stars.